So a little over a year ago, I hopped off of most of my socials. And although I don't think I would have changed a thing, I'll be honest, there were times where I really felt the downsides of being disconnected. And I think it's important to talk about that too. So without further ado, here's my real, honest truth about the reality of being off of social media for a year. Or most of them at least. Y'all really came from my neck the last time I posted a video about this topic. I'm just gonna address the elephant in the room. I got like an influx of YouTube is a social media, Michelle. And you know what? Valid, okay? Fair point. When I made that video, genuinely, I was like, oh, YouTube is different. Just because the way that I was using it was different from the way that I was using other platforms. I was using it more for like self-expression versus like Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat, where I was kind of using it more for self-validation. Obviously, that differentiation for me doesn't really change the technicalities of the term, but that's not something that I explained or was gonna like throw into the title. So valid points made. But anyways, it's been officially more than a year since I hopped off of most of my socials, so I thought it'd be cool to discuss the long-term pros and cons I've kind of taken note of this past year. I like ending on a positive, so we're gonna start out with the cons. So the first con I would say is being out of the loop. This was a point for my last video as well, but it kind of carries a different meaning this time. In my last video, I kind of talked about being out of like social trends and news. This time, I kind of mean more so towards like my close friends and family. Although it's true that I've noticed that yes, I don't really care about a lot of people's lives that I thought I cared about. With the people that I genuinely do care about, I feel like I sort of miss out on these little milestones that they have. Milestones that aren't big enough to really mention in like catch-up conversations, but are just like more passive. For example, my cousins have kids, and just like posting their like first days of school or like pictures of them throughout the months. Obviously, it makes it a lot more meaningful when I'm able to see them again, but sometimes it feels like I'm just missing out on these like little moments. I know you can make the argument of, Michelle, you should just reach out more, but the thing is, I have a lot of family, and it's not to say that I don't like care enough to think about them, but obviously when it's out of sight, sometimes it is unfortunately out of mind. And I obviously try my best to keep up with my family, but sometimes with my friends and my family, like we're just busy, we can't see each other. I don't know, it's just one of those things that's hard to balance when you're an adult, you know? The second con that I want to talk about is not having an outlet for photos. This one is gonna be kind of hard to explain because literally that's like the whole point of being off of social media, is that you don't post all these things. You start to enjoy the moment more. I'm not the best photographer ever, but I don't know, I like capturing things that I think are beautiful, and it's also really fun to be able to share those things with the people you love. At one point, I was just feeling like I was just taking photos and they just like sat in my camera roll. I was thinking of like maybe like scrapbooking or like starting a blog. The creating part for me has always been what I like doing, but when I'm on these apps, it's more so one of those things where I'm constantly consuming, which in moderation is okay, but the way that I was doing it was not healthy at all. I definitely don't want to hop back on the app and go through that cycle again. Sometimes I see like a beautiful scenery and I'm like, I wish more people could see this. That's one of the things I feel like was kind of taken away when I stopped using like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and all that. And to build onto that, I also found myself not documenting my life as much. Kind of good and both kind of bad. Like even in terms of just like taking photos of myself for my own memories, I feel like once I stopped using social media, I kind of like stopped taking photos of things in general. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh my god, I was here and I literally took like no photos of it. I kind of wish I did, because sometimes I do really like looking back on things. It's this weird duality thing. I just need to find like the balance of it somewhere where I am able to document my life and capture the moment, but also be able to enjoy the moment for what it is. The third con that I wanted to talk about, which is kind of the opposite of what I said in my last video. This is sort of a con that doesn't really come out until like a lot after. I think I really started to enjoy the privacy of being offline and having people not know what's going on with me. And because that privacy comes with a lot of peace, I try to protect it as much as I can. And sometimes I feel like I take it to the extreme and I become kind of closed off to people. I know that in my last video, I talked about how being on social media kind of encouraged me to be more social because I crave the social interaction. I definitely think that I still am social and more sociable now. The thing is though, in conversations, I rarely share anything about my life because I enjoy the privacy, but at the same time, time when I'm too private, it could come off as like standoffish and cold. Obviously, when you're making friends, it's not ideal to be like, I'm a private person, I don't want you to know anything about my life. I feel like this topic is kind of interesting because a lot of the cons are also pros in a way, and some of the pros can also be turned into cons. Navigating through this process and through this journey is definitely all about balance. My fourth and final con is if you are an artist, it will be very hard to be inspired by other artists. Again, this is one of those things where it could be looked at as good or bad because when you're not consuming other people's work, you have more originality. When you're offline and you're not consuming as much, a lot of the ideas are just coming from your head. As much as that is a good thing, collaboration and being inspired by other people and other artists is such a big part of the creative process. If I have a video idea, I usually will like search up about that topic and sort of get inspired that way. Or I'll search up like a certain like mood that I want to achieve and I'll be inspired through there. It's not one of those organic things where you see something and you're like, oh my god, this inspires a whole new idea that I never even had in the first place. If you ever watch the video Steal Like an Artist, it basically talks about how there is absolutely no original idea. Everything that's created is a combination of a bunch of different works that are like combined together to create this new thing that people in the next generation can enjoy. It's been a while since I watched that video, so like don't quote me on that, but essentially what it talks about is that good artists are inspired by other great artists. As much as you may think that your idea is original, it has to be inspired somehow. And that's honestly a great thing because when you are being inspired by these artists, you're being inspired by these works of the past, you're sort of putting your own twist on it that is original to your generation. And so the people who are enjoying your work can also enjoy parts of works that were made in the past. And when you're off of social media, that part is kind of taken away somehow. Obviously, you can meet up with other artists and sort of bounce ideas back and forth, but I remember there were just so many times where I was like scrolling through social media and I would see a picture and I was like, wow, I want to recreate that mood, or wow, I want to make like a whole storyline based off of this photo or this artwork. And although consuming was a big part of why I wanted to hop off of social media, not consuming at all was also kind of detrimental to my creative process. These days, I kind of find myself looking towards like movies and shows for inspiration, but sometimes there can be a lack of variety in that. Anyways, the gist of this is balance is very, very important, and finding alternatives to have that balance is not something that I really considered until I was like off of social media for like a pretty long time. So definitely keep that in mind. It's getting super dark now, so I'm gonna move on to the pros. The first pro that I really noticed long term was that I was a lot more present in moments and conversations. There wasn't like this pressure to like capture the moment to show somebody else. Obviously, no one's holding a gun to my head to take a picture of what I'm doing and post it, but if I were to like go out somewhere cool or like eat really cool food and I didn't take a picture of it, I'd be like, wow, that was such a waste. You did something cool and you didn't even take a picture of it and show it to everybody. I know I just talked about this in my cons, but I do want to find a balance of being able to document my life, but also being able to enjoy the moment as well. But the longer I am off, I do notice that when I am taking pictures and I am like capturing the moment, it is like on my own terms. It's because I want to document it, not because I feel like this external pressure to constantly show my life off and flaunt all the cool things I'm doing. And it's weird because the external pressure is like coming from myself in a way, which is odd. I know a lot of people are able to balance this really well, but for me personally, I know my own personality. I kind of operate in extremes. Because I know that those extremes really come out when I'm on social media, I try to stay away from it when I can. But then again, the things I say in this video are not going to relate to every single person and everyone's individual experience, so please just keep that in mind. The second pro that I've noticed is that I don't really care much about what people think about me anymore, and it made it a lot easier to start living for myself. I think being on platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat kind of made me accustomed to feeling like people were watching me, when in reality, no one is watching you, especially in real life. I used to be so self-conscious when people would like even glance at me. I would be like, oh my god, is there something wrong with my face? Did I do something? Did I say something weird? But trust me, people do not care about you, and that is very freeing and very comforting to know. They see like a million people every single day. They probably aren't even thinking anything about you. And I used to hear it all the time, like, oh, nobody's watching you, nobody's paying attention to you. But it was hard to actually believe that until I like removed myself, because if you were anything like me, I was like the biggest social media oversharer ever. I would document document literally every single thing. So like obviously it would make me feel like I was being watched because I kept on sharing things that really didn't need to be shared. And obviously I'm sharing to you here on YouTube and you're watching me right now, but what I share here is not nearly as much as what I used to share on Instagram, Twitter. I feel like with YouTube it takes a little longer, so I have to be a little bit more intentional with what I'm putting out. But with the other apps, I feel like I was just like mindlessly sharing my business with people that I didn't even know that well. I don't really care what people are thinking about me anymore because people most likely aren't even thinking about me in the first place. The third pro that I've noticed is that I became a lot less obsessive with romantic partners. I don't know if anyone will relate to this because maybe it's more of like an anxious attachment type thing. When I used to be interested in someone, I used to cyberstalk them until there was nothing left to cyberstalk. And I would literally like imagine my future with them in my head. I know what you're thinking. I know you probably think I'm crazy. Maybe I am, okay? But when you have so much information and access to a person's life before you even get a chance to like get to know them in real life, sometimes I feel like it can take away from the getting to know someone process when I'm already knowing so much about them by seeing them on their socials. I definitely find that I'm enjoying getting to know people more when I'm offline. But yeah, that's something that I thought I'd mention because I know I have a lot of anxiously attached people. It is just a recipe for disappointment. The fourth pro is that conversations are a lot better. I've been off for a year now and I can definitely say that I am out of the loop when it comes to any celebrity news and when it comes to pop culture. Not everything, but most things. I'm not gonna lie, in the past, I've definitely been like, can you believe this person's dating this person? It's just like meaningless conversation about other people's business. And I'd say like I didn't really care much about them, but I guess I did enough, or maybe I just saw it and it was like slightly shocking to me. Because I don't know much about what's going on, my conversations definitely aren't centered around that. I'm definitely able to have more meaningful and relevant conversations with people these days. And those conversations are definitely a lot more fulfilling. So yeah, that's definitely another pro. And this doesn't even always have to be celebrities either. Like it can even go for like people that I used to know that I don't really care much about anymore, but because I see their business is just like on my mind, you know? The fifth pro that I'd like to talk about is that I became a lot less anxious. I feel like it was more so like a bunch of factors coming together to make me feel less on edge all the time. Overstimulation, I think, was a big one. I was seeing just so much content that I should not be consuming on a daily basis. I don't know who was talking about this, but it definitely was true. You could see like a 10-second video that makes you super happy, and then the next 10 seconds you're watching a video that makes you cry, and then the next video could be something funny again. And it's just such a wide range of emotions that you're feeling in such a short amount of time, which is not healthy for anybody. And so it was no wonder that I was feeling like shaken up or feeling like I was constantly on this like emotional roller coaster. Another thing was probably also like comparison. Like I wasn't seeing other people that I could compare myself to as much. But yeah, seeing people your age or younger than you doing things that you wish you were doing is definitely not helpful, and social media is full of those. Out of sight, out of mind, and just made it a lot easier to be with myself and focus on myself. And the final pro that I want to talk about is privacy. Not to be a conspiracy theorist, that is never a good sentence starter. I swear, Instagram ads used to listen to me, okay? I know for a fact some of you have experienced this. I've gotten comments about it. But other than that, there are a lot of privacy concerns also, and it's not to say that YouTube is any better, but for me personally, I definitely am a lot more selective about things that I post on YouTube. Okay, editing me here. I didn't really explain much how it was a privacy concern. For me personally, I would always post where I was. Like if I was eating at like a restaurant, I would like post the location of the restaurant while I was at the restaurant. And I know like I'm not like a big person, like I'm not gonna get like robbed or something if somebody sees that I'm at like this specific restaurant. But it's just like the fact that I used to do that was kind of like, why am I telling people where I am, like at all times? People knew what area I was in a lot. People knew what city I lived in because I would just like post it willy-nilly. They would know where I went to work because I'd post my coworkers. They would know where I went to school because I'd post my friends. It was just a lot about me that I really didn't want people to know. Like I'm pretty careful on YouTube these days, or I try to be. If I'm out on the street, I'll try to like blur the signs and stuff. Obviously, if people really wanted to find where it was, they probably could, but I try not to include like street names or like very recognizable places places. If I do include those things, it's not close to where I live. I don't really talk about where I am, where I'm gonna be, and all that, where I go to school, where I go to work. It's just one of those things that's better kept private. Not that I'm on edge all the time, but it just gives me peace of mind, to be honest. And yeah, I try not to tell people more than they need to know these days, and I really like it that way, so. But yeah, so those are the main pros I've noticed this past year. Before I go, I want to end off by answering a couple questions I've been getting recently about this topic, and the first one being, will I ever go back? Honestly, lately, I haven't really felt the urge to hop back on. I'm gonna be completely honest, after the 1 year mark, around like March-ish, I tried to go back onto TikTok, and I saw a post that really triggered me and just sent me into a spiral, so I was like, absolutely not. Literally the moment I got on TikTok, I was triggered, so I just deleted it again. So yeah, I definitely have broken my streak, but I don't really feel the urge to like be back on there. I just don't want to make this whole like I quit social media thing my whole personality where I'm just like bound to that decision for the rest of my life. Honestly, at this point, overall, it's been like pretty positive for me, so I don't really feel the urge to come back on. Obviously, if I change my mind, then I change my mind, but yeah, that's where I've been at. I find that even when I came back, it just wasn't the same. I don't know, I kind of feel better with the way that I am right now, so. Okay, I'm hopping back on. I'm gonna be hopping in and out. Somebody said in my comments one time, something that really helped them was to delete their main profile off of like Instagram, Twitter, and whatever, and create a new profile with only their close friends. And I'm like, that's actually a good idea. Like, I wonder if I would be as addicted if I did that. If I ever were to come back, that's probably how I would do it. Like, I would just like have like one for like my very, very close friends. And I don't really have a lot, so like, let me know if any of you have tried that, if you liked it, if you didn't. Another question that I got was, so what do you do instead? At first, not gonna lie, I was like, how do I answer this question? But when you consider how enthralled everyone is with the internet these days, honestly, valid question, okay? What do you do? What do you do instead? I mean, these days, I guess I read more, I watch movies more, watch more shows. And when I get the chance to go out with my friends and family anywhere, I definitely take it. Versus before, I kind of found that if I wasn't feeling it that day, I would kind of like skip out on plans, or if my parents were like going out on a walk or something and I was feeling tired, I would just like stay in. But I don't really find myself doing that anymore. Anytime I'm invited somewhere, I'll go. I didn't really notice that until recently, actually. So it's very true. I don't really skip out on plans anymore to stay in and like go on my phone and like watch videos and stuff. So yeah, that is a good question. That is something that I definitely notice. I go out, so that's what I do instead. When you're off, you will definitely notice that you have a lot of time, so definitely look into things that you like doing. The possibilities are endless. Okay, so another question I forgot to answer was, somebody asked me how I kind of dealt with like YouTube. They're like, oh, I'm off of everything else, but now I'm addicted to YouTube. Relatable. One way that I combated that was to just delete the app off my phone. I only re-download it sometimes if I'm going on like a road trip or something, or I want to give myself like a cheeky little break. But yeah, I don't have the app on my phone, and I find that really helps. If I do watch YouTube videos, it's on my laptop, and when I'm on my laptop, I don't really watch that many videos. The only problem with having the YouTube app on my phone was YouTube Shorts. That thing is very addicting. Another question that I got was, how do I keep up with news? Usually just like local news. I have like on my work computer, there's like a news section, and I usually like go through there. Sometimes when I'm scrolling through YouTube, it has like local news as well. A lot of times my parents send me news too. Low-key, I know I should be keeping up a little bit more with the news, but I actually haven't since I hopped off. Sometimes I watch Philip DeFranco for fun. Sometimes I watch Vox. Another thing that I want to mention, this is just like a point overall. You don't have to be so rigid with this. I get so many comments of people being like, oh, I want to do this, but I can't let go of this app, and I can't do this because I need this for school. Honestly, like, it doesn't have to be this whole black and white thing where you are off of like all of it. Maybe I'm just saying that to justify the fact that I'm on YouTube, but in all seriousness, it doesn't have to be this rigid thing where you are like completely disconnected. Like, if you find that Instagram is toxic for you, but Pinterest is fine, then use Pinterest. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. If you find that it helps if you take a break and then come back on and not completely like be off of it altogether, then that's fine too. Every single person is going to be different, and that depends on your limits and knowing your limits. I know my limits, and personally, I am an addict. Kind of remind me of when I was like a vegetarian. I was very, very strict on being vegetarian. If I would fall off, I would be like, oh my god, like this is terrible, like, and I was so strict about it. If I did like fall off or like make a mistake, I beat myself up over it so much it kind of discouraged me from doing it altogether. So yeah, trial and error it and sort of go from there. But anyways, that marks marks the end of the video. Hopefully this inspires you to get off for a bit, maybe take a break, maybe hop off completely, totally up to you. If you are thinking of taking a break and you don't want to do it forever, I would say just hop off until you feel like you don't really rely on these apps for like validation and happiness. And once you're able to maintain that healthy distance, I really don't see a problem with being on the apps. And honestly, me being off of these apps for as long as I was just to break my own attachment to them. And I would say I'm at a pretty healthy place now. I'm at a place where I'm happy with it. And even with the cons, this year has definitely been a positive one for me. But yeah, anyways, that is my 1 year update. Hopefully this has helped some of you out and kind of given you some more insights. Feel free to ask any questions and leave video ideas down below. That's all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching if you got this far. Hope you have a great day and I will see you next time.